The space above planet Kepler 442b looked like a metal storm. 3,000 alien warships filled the darkness between the stars. Their hulls gleamed under the light of the distant sun. Each ship was bigger than a human city. Some were long and thin like metal snakes. Others were round like deadly moons. All of them had one thing in common. They carried enough weapons to destroy entire worlds. Admiral Vexter stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. His 6 arms moved across control panels, while his 4 eyes watched the tactical displays. He was a Zephyrian, one of the most feared warriors in the galaxy. His gray skin was covered in battle scars from 100 different wars. Today would be his greatest victory. "How many human ships do our scouts report?" Vexter asked his second-in-command. "None yet, Admiral. But our spies say they have almost 800 warships in their fleet. They must be gathering them from all over human space." Vexter made a sound that was almost like laughter. 800 ships against our 3,000. The humans are brave, but they are also fools. The Zephyrian hegemony was not just one alien race. It was 12 different species working together. They had been planning this attack for 5 years. The humans had colonies in 17 star systems that the aliens wanted. Rich worlds full of rare metals and energy crystals. The humans had refused to give them up, peacefully. So war it would be. On Earth, 12 billion miles away, Admiral Jack Murphy sat in a meeting room deep under the Pentagon. The walls were covered with screens showing star maps and battle plans. Around the table sat the best military minds that humanity had to offer. Captain Lisa Brown was reading from a datapad. "Sir, our long-range sensors confirm it. The alien fleet is the biggest we have ever seen. 3,000 ships of various classes, at least 50 dreadnoughts, over 200 battle cruisers. The rest are destroyers, fighters, and support craft." Colonel Pete Williams slammed his hand on the table. "We need to call up every ship we have. Every destroyer, every cruiser, every fighter. We can have 786 ships ready for battle in 48 hours. "That won't be enough," said Captain Brown. "Even with all our ships, we're outnumbered 4-1, and their individual ships are bigger than ours." Admiral Murphy had been quiet during the discussion. He was 60 years old and had been fighting space battles since. He was 20. His hair was gray now, and his face showed the stress of command. But his eyes were still sharp and clear. "What do we know about their formation?" Murphy asked. Captain Brown touched her datapad. The main screen showed the alien fleet from above. "They're arranged in a classic battle formation, sir. The big ships in the center, smaller ships forming a protective screen around them. It's the same formation that worked for them in the Centauri campaign 5 years ago." Murphy studied the formation for a long time. The other officers waited for him to speak. They knew he was thinking of something, but they could not guess what. "They're thinking like an old navy," Murphy finally said. "Ship against ship. Gun against gun. Line of battle, sir." Colonel Williams looked confused. "Look at their formation again. See those gaps? They're leaving spaces for their ships to maneuver. They expect us to come at them head-on, like ships sailing across an ocean. They want a traditional space battle." Captain Brown nodded. "That's how space battles have always been fought, sir. 2 fleets meet, exchange fire, and the stronger fleet wins." Murphy stood up and walked to the main display. He pointed at the alien formation. "What if we don't give them the battle they expect?" The room fell silent. Murphy touched the screen, zooming in on different parts of the alien fleet. "They have 3,000 ships, but they're all thinking the same way. They expect us to bring our fleet to fight their fleet. They've prepared for a big space battle with explosions and laser fire and all the drama of war. What are you suggesting, sir?" asked Captain Brown. Murphy turned to face his officers. I'm suggesting we send one ship. The silence in the room became even deeper. Colonel Williams was the first to speak. Sir, did you say one ship? I did. Against 3,000 enemy ships? That's right. Captain Brown leaned forward. Admiral, with respect, that would be suicide. One ship cannot possibly fight an entire fleet. Murphy smiled for the first time that day. Who said anything about fighting? He walked back to his chair and sat down. The other officers were staring at him like he had lost his mind. Gentlemen, lady, we have been preparing for this war the wrong way. We've been building ships and training, crews and making battle plans. All good things. But we've been thinking like everyone else in the galaxy thinks. Murphy touched his control pad. The screen changed to show a new image. A single human ship unlike any they had seen before. This is the USS Defiance. It was built in secret at the Titan shipyards. Only a few people know it exists. It's not like our other ships. It doesn't fight the way other ships fight. The Defiance looked different from normal human warships. It was smaller and sleeker. Its hull was black as space itself. Strange patterns of light moved across its surface like living things. What makes it special? Asked Colonel Williams. Let's just say it represents a new way of thinking about warfare. The aliens expect us to meet force with force. Instead, we're going to meet force with something they don't understand. Captain Brown was studying the image of the Defiance. Who would command such a mission? Captain Ryan Carter. He's young, but he thinks differently. He doesn't follow the old rules of space combat because he helped write the new ones. Murphy stood up again. Gentlemen, lady, in 6 hours I will send one ship to face 3,000. The aliens are expecting the biggest space battle in galactic history. Instead, they're going to learn why you should never underestimate human creativity. The meeting ended, but the officers remained in their seats, staring at the image of the lone human ship that would soon face impossible odds. Far above Earth in the Titan shipyards, Captain Ryan Carter was getting ready for the most important mission of his life. Captain Ryan Carter stood on the bridge of the USS Defiance and felt the weight of the entire human race on his shoulders. He was 35 years old, younger than most ship captains. His brown hair was cut short in military style, and his green eyes showed both determination and worry. The Defiance was not like other human ships. The bridge was smaller, with only 10 crew stations instead of the usual 30. The walls were covered with displays that showed strange symbols and numbers that most people would not understand. Everything was designed for speed and efficiency. Captain, we're ready to leave the shipyard, said his helmsman, Lieutenant Danny Hughes. Danny was 28 and had been Carter's friend since they attended the Space Academy together. He was the best pilot Carter had ever seen. Engineering report, Carter called out. Chief Engineer Amy Parker looked up from her station. She was 32, with red hair tied back in a practical ponytail. Her blue eyes were always moving, always checking readouts and monitoring systems. All systems are green, Captain. The quantum drives are operating at peak efficiency. Science station? Lieutenant Kelly Wright turned from her complex array of instruments. She was 29, with short black hair and brown eyes that seemed to see everything at once. Quantum sensors are calibrated and ready. Long-range scanning is active. Carter nodded and sat in his captain's chair. It was strange to think that this crew of only 200 people was about to face the largest alien fleet in history. Most human ships carried crews of 500 or more. Take us out, Danny. The Defiance moved away from the Titan shipyards with impossible smoothness. Other ships needed big engines that glowed bright and made noise. The Defiance moved like it was swimming through space instead of flying through it. Course laid in. For the Kepler system, Danny reported. Quantum drive ready for activation. Amy called from engineering. Carter took a deep breath. Once they made the jump to faster-than-light travel, there would be no turning back. Engage quantum drive. The stars outside the bridge windows seemed to stretch into long lines of light. Then everything went white for just a moment. When the light faded, they were no longer near Earth. They were moving through the dark space, between star systems, covering distances that would take light years to travel. Time to arrival at Kepler 442b? Carter asked. 18 hours at current speed, Danny replied. Carter opened the ship's communication system to address his crew. This is the captain speaking. In 18 hours, we will arrive at the Kepler system. We will be facing 3,000 enemy ships with just one ship ours. I know that sounds impossible. I know some of you are scared. I'm scared too. He paused, looking around the bridge at his officers. They were all young, all brilliant, and all volunteers for this mission. But I want you to remember something. We are not going to fight the way they expect us to fight. We are not going to play by their rules. We have something they don't have. We have human imagination. 18 hours later, the Defiance dropped out of quantum drive at the edge of the Kepler system. Immediately, the ship's sensors began picking up the massive alien fleet. Holy space dust, Danny whispered as he looked at his displays. Captain, there are so many ships out there that our computers can't count them all. Kelly Wright was bent over her science station, studying the readings. I'm detecting 3,047 individual ships. Mass readings suggest most of them are much larger than our biggest battleships. On the main screen, the alien fleet looked like a swarm of metal insects. The ships were arranged in perfect formation, with the biggest ones in the center and smaller ones forming protective rings around them. They're hailing us, reported Communications Officer Lieutenant Steve Nash. He was 26, with blonde hair and blue eyes that showed surprise. Actually, sir, they're hailing us on 12 different frequencies, and they sound ... confused. Carter almost smiled. Put them through. The voice that came through the speakers was translated by the ship's computers. It had a strange alien tone, but the words were clear. Human vessel, this is Admiral Vexter of the Zephyrian Hegemony. You are one ship facing 3,000. Have you come to surrender? Carter stood up from his chair. Admiral Vexter, this is Captain Ryan Carter of the USS Defiance. We have come to resolve this situation. There was a long pause. Then the alien voice came back, sounding even more confused. Resolve? Captain Carter, you are one ship. We are 3,000 ships. Where is your fleet? Our fleet? Carter looked around his bridge at his crew. They were all watching him, waiting to see what he would say. Admiral, you're looking at it. Another long pause. This time, Carter could hear alien voices talking in the background. They were arguing about something. Captain Carter, the Admiral's voice came back. This is not possible. Our intelligence reports say humans have almost 800 warships. Where are they? Carter walked to the front of the bridge, looking out at the alien fleet through the main window. They were too far away to see clearly, but he knew they were there. Thousands of ships, millions of alien warriors, all waiting for a battle that would never come. Admiral, you made a mistake. You thought like every other military commander in the galaxy. You assumed we would meet your fleet with our fleet. You assumed we would fight the way everyone else fights. And how do humans fight? The alien asked. Carter nodded to Kelly Wright. She began activating systems that had never been used in combat before. Strange energy readings began appearing on her displays. We fight smart, Carter said. Amy Parker called out from engineering. Captain, quantum systems are charging. We'll be ready to demonstrate our capabilities in 5 minutes. Demonstrate? Admiral Vexta's voice came through the speakers. What are you planning to demonstrate? Carter sat back down in his captain's chair. He felt calm now, calmer than he had felt since leaving Earth. Admiral, you wanted to see humanity's full military strength. You thought it would take 800 ships to show you what we can do. He paused, watching as his crew prepared systems that could change the course of galactic history. You were wrong. It only takes one ship to show you what humans can do. When we stop thinking like everyone else. The alien fleet began moving, adjusting their formation. They were preparing for something, but they had no idea what. Captain, Danny called out, they're launching scout ships. 12 small fighters heading our way. Carter nodded. Perfect. Amy, are the quantum defense systems ready? Ready, Captain. Kelly, are you recording everything? Every sensor reading. Every energy signature. Every detail. Carter opened the communication channel again. Admiral Vexter, your scout ships are about to learn something new about human technology. Watch carefully. The 12 alien fighters were getting closer. They were small, fast ships designed for reconnaissance and light combat. Against any normal human ship, they would be dangerous. But the Defiance was not a normal ship. Danny, show them what happens when they get too close to a human ship. Danny's hands moved across his controls. The alien fighters were now only a few thousand kilometers away, close enough to scan the Defiance with their sensors. Then they simply vanished, not destroyed in explosions of fire and metal, not shot down by laser beams or missiles. They just stopped existing, as if they had never been there at all. The alien fleet's communications exploded with panic and confusion. Voices in a dozen different alien languages filled the radio channels. Admiral. Vexter's voice came through, no longer calm and confident. What did you do? Where are my fighters? Carter looked at his crew. They were all staring at their instruments, amazed by what they had just accomplished. Admiral, Carter said calmly, you wanted to see our strength. That was just the beginning. The alien fleet hung in space like a frozen storm. 3,000 ships that had been moving in perfect formation now drifted without direction. Their crews were trying to understand what had just happened to the 12 scout fighters. Admiral. Vexter's voice came through the communication system again, but now it shook with anger and fear. Human Captain, what weapon did you use? Our fighters are gone, but we detected no energy beams, no missiles, no explosions. Captain Carter stood on the bridge of the Defiance, watching the tactical display. The alien fleet was spreading out, moving into defensive positions. They were scared, and scared enemies made mistakes. Amy, Carter called to his chief engineer. Explain to the Admiral what just happened. Chief Engineer Amy Parker looked up from her station. For the past 6 months, she had been working 18 hours a day to make this moment possible. Her engineering team had rebuilt the Defiances. Quantum drive system from the ground up. Admiral Vexter, Amy said into the communication system, your fighters weren't destroyed. They were relocated? Relocated? The alien's translated voice sounded confused. We moved them to a different location in space. They're perfectly safe. Just not here anymore. There was a long silence. Then Admiral Vexter spoke again. That is impossible. You cannot move objects through space without some kind of transport beam, and we would have detected any such beam. Lieutenant Kelly Wright looked up from her science station. Her displays were covered with data that looked like pure mathematics come to life. Numbers and symbols flowed across her screens like water. Captain, Kelly said, I've finished the quantum signature analysis of their fleet. Every ship has a unique pattern. I can locate and track all of them. Carter nodded. Admiral Vexter, let me explain something about human technology. While your people spent centuries building bigger guns and thicker armor, we learned to do Something different. We learned to change the rules of space and time. Lieutenant Danny Hughes was monitoring the alien fleet's movements. Captain, they're trying to surround us. Looks like they're planning some kind of coordinated attack. Let them come, Carter said. Kelly, pick one ship from their fleet. Something big enough that they'll notice when it's gone. Kelly studied her displays. The alien fleet contained ships of many different sizes and designs. The biggest ones were the dreadnoughts, massive vessels that could destroy planets. But moving one of those might be seen as too aggressive. There, Kelly pointed at her screen. That battle cruiser on the left edge of their formation. It's big enough to make a point, but not their most important ship. Perfect. Amy, prepare for a demonstration. Amy's hands moved across her engineering controls. Deep in the heart of the Defiance, quantum fields began building to impossible levels. The ship's experimental drive system wasn't just used for traveling faster than light. Anymore, it had been turned into something completely new. Quantum displacement field is ready, Amy reported. Admiral Vexther, Carter said into the communication system. Please observe your battlecruiser designated as Target 77 Alpha. Which ship? The Admiral sounded confused. The one that's about to take a little trip. Carter nodded too. Amy. She pressed a single button on her control panel. The alien battlecruiser, a ship 3 kilometers long and carrying a crew of 5,000, simply vanished. One moment it was there, a deadly metal mountain floating in space. The next moment, there was nothing but empty darkness. The alien communication channels exploded with panic. Voices in a dozen languages filled the radio spectrum. Ships began, moving in all directions, their crews no longer sure what was safe and what was dangerous. Bring it back, Carter said quietly. Amy pressed another button. The alien battlecruiser reappeared exactly where it had been before, completely undamaged. Its crew was probably very confused, but they were alive and well. Admiral Vexther's voice came through the speakers, no longer confident or angry. Now he sounded frightened. How did you do that? Carter walked to the center of his bridge. Through the main window, he could see the distant lights of the alien fleet. They looked smaller now, less threatening. Admiral, your ships are built to fight other ships. Your weapons are designed to punch through armor and destroy engines. Your shields are meant to stop energy beams and missiles. All very impressive technology. He paused, letting his words sink in. But what good are guns and armor against an enemy who can move your entire ship to the other side of the galaxy? Kelly Wright was studying the readings from the demonstration. Captain, the quantum displacement worked perfectly. I could have sent that ship anywhere, to their home system, to the edge of the galaxy, even to a different dimension if needed. Danny Hughes was watching the alien fleet's movements. Sir, they're pulling back. All ships are increasing distance from us. Carter opened the communication channel again. Admiral Vexther, do you understand now? We don't need 1,000 ships to fight your 1,000 ships. We can simply put your ships somewhere else. The alien admiral's voice was quiet when he replied. What do you want? We want you to leave human space. All of it? The 17 systems you're trying to take from us will remain under human control. And if we refuse? Carter looked at his crew. Amy was monitoring the quantum systems. Kelly was tracking every ship in the alien fleet. Danny was ready to move the Defiance to any position in space instantly. Admiral, let me show you what happens if you refuse. This time, Carter didn't target just one ship. Kelly had been busy mapping the quantum signatures of the entire alien fleet. Every ship, from the smallest fighter to the largest dreadnought, was now identified and tracked. Amy, select 50 ships at random. Send them to the edge of the solar system. Yes, sir. 50 alien ships vanished from the fleet formation. They reappeared 12 billion kilometers away, at the very edge of the Kepler system. Their crews were safe, but they were now hours away from the main battle at maximum speed. The remaining alien ships stopped moving entirely. Their crews were probably staring at their instruments, trying to understand how 50 warships could disappear and reappear so far away in the blink of an eye. "Bring them back," Carter ordered. The 50 ships reappeared in their original positions, but the message was clear. The humans could move any ship, or all ships, wherever they wanted. Admiral Vexter's voice came through the speakers one more time. It was barely a whisper. "What are you?" Carter sat down in his captain's chair. He felt tired suddenly, tired of the fear and anger that led to wars like this one. "Admiral, we're just humans. We're curious, and we like to solve problems." The problem was that everyone in the galaxy fights the same way, with big fleets and bigger guns. So we found a different way. "You have made warfare obsolete," the Admiral said. "Not obsolete," Carter replied. "Just different. Admiral, your fleet can go home now. There's no point in fighting a battle you can't win. But more than that, there's no point in fighting at all." Carter looked around his bridge at his young crew. They had just changed the balance of power in the entire galaxy, and they had done it without firing a single shot or killing a single enemy. "Admiral Vexter, humanity offers you something better than war. We offer you peace and the chance to learn from each other." The alien fleet began to move, but not toward the Defiance. They were turning around, preparing to leave the Kepler system. The war was over before it had really begun. The alien fleet was not moving as one anymore. Admiral Vexter watched his tactical display with growing concern as his carefully organized formation began to fall apart. Ships from different species were breaking away from the main group. Their crews arguing over what to do next. "Admiral," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving transmissions from all the coalition species. The Furian Empire wants to withdraw immediately. The Crystalline Collective is requesting permission to open negotiations with the humans. The Corvin Republic is demanding that we attack before the humans can use their weapon again." Vexter's 4 eyes studied the display showing the single human ship. The USS Defiance sat motionless in space, looking small and harmless. But he had just watched it make 50 of his ships disappear and reappear like they were toys. "What does our science division say about their weapon?" he asked. His science officer, a thin Zephyrian named Kekstar, looked up from his instruments. "Admiral, we've never seen anything like it. There was no energy signature, no particle beam, no gravitational distortion. The ships just moved. One instant they were here. The next instant they were 12 billion kilometers away. Could it be some kind of trick? Holograms, perhaps? No, sir. We confirmed with the displaced ships. They actually traveled that distance in 0 time. And they report no damage, no stress on their hulls, no effects on their crews. It's as if space itself simply changed around them." Admiral Vexter had been fighting wars for 30 years. He had seen every kind of weapon technology in the galaxy. Energy beams that could slice planets in half. Missiles that could chase targets across star systems. Gravity bombs that could crush entire fleets. But he had never seen anything that could simply move enemy ships to a different location without harming them. On the bridge of the Defiance, Captain Carter was having his own problems. The alien fleet was breaking apart, with different groups of ships moving in different directions. Some were pulling back, clearly wanting to retreat. Others were moving forward, preparing for an attack. "Captain," Lieutenant Kelly Wright reported, "from her science station, I'm detecting massive communication traffic between the alien ships. They're arguing amongst themselves." "What are they saying?" Carter asked. The translator is having trouble with all the different languages, but the main argument seems to be whether to retreat or attack. Some species want to leave, others want to fight. Chief Engineer Amy Parker looked up from her station. Captain, the quantum systems are still at full power. If they decide to attack, I can displace their entire fleet in about 30 seconds. Carter nodded, but he was worried. Moving the alien ships away from the battle was one thing. But if they scattered in all directions, some groups might escape and return later with reinforcements. Or worse, they might decide to attack human colonies while the Defiance was busy dealing with other groups. Danny, Carter called to his helmsman, if they break up into smaller groups, can you track them all? Lieutenant Danny Hughes studied his navigation display. I can track them, sir, but if they split up and head in different directions, we can't follow all of them at once. The situation was getting more complicated by the minute. Carter had hoped that demonstrating humanity's new technology would convince the aliens to retreat peacefully. Instead, it was causing their coalition to fall apart, which might make the situation even more dangerous. Incoming transmission from the alien flagship, reported Communications Officer Steve Nash. Put it through. Admiral Vexter's voice came through the speakers, but now he sounded tired and frustrated. Captain Carter, my coalition is falling apart. Some of my commanders want to retreat. Others want to attack you with everything we have. I'm losing control of the situation. Carter thought quickly. The alien admiral was being honest with him, which was a good sign. But if the alien fleet broke apart completely, it could lead to chaos throughout the galaxy. Admiral, what would it take to hold your coalition together? Proof, Vexter replied immediately. They need to understand exactly what they're facing. Some of my commanders think your weapon has limited range or power. They want to test it. Carter looked around his bridge at his crew. Amy was monitoring the quantum systems. Kelly was tracking the alien ships. Danny was ready to move the Defiance to any position needed. They all looked back at him, waiting for his decision. Admiral Vexter, choose your largest ship, your most powerful dreadnought. Have it approach us? There was a pause. Captain, if you're planning to destroy it, I'm not going to destroy anything, Carter interrupted. But your commanders need to understand that size doesn't matter when you're dealing with human technology. Minutes later, the largest ship in the alien fleet began moving toward the Defiance. It was a Corvin dreadnought, 5 kilometers long and 3 kilometers wide. Its hull was covered with weapon ports and armor plating. It carried a crew of 20,000 and had enough firepower to destroy a moon. That's a big ship, Danny commented as he watched it approach. Size doesn't matter, Carter replied. Kelly, lock onto its quantum signature. Locked on, Captain. The dreadnought stopped about 50,000 kilometers away from the Defiance. Even at that distance, it looked enormous on the main screen. Carter opened the communication channel. Admiral Vexter, your dreadnought is now going to take a trip, but this time we're going to send it somewhere special. Where? The Admiral asked. Carter smiled. To the other side of the galaxy. To the Andromeda Galaxy, to be exact. The silence that followed was complete. Even the background chatter from the alien fleet stopped. Captain, Admiral Vexter's voice was barely a whisper. Andromeda is 2.5 million light-years away. Even our fastest ships would take millions of years to travel that distance. I know, Carter replied. Amy, send the dreadnought to Andromeda. Outer Rim, uninhabited system. Amy pressed her controls. The Corvin dreadnought, with its crew of 20,000, simply vanished. Kelly was monitoring her instruments carefully. Quantum displacement successful. The ship has arrived in the Andromeda Galaxy, exactly where we aimed it. The alien fleet was completely silent now. Carter let the silence stretch for a full minute before speaking again. "Admiral, your dreadnought and its crew are perfectly safe. They're in orbit around an uninhabited planet in another galaxy. They can see the Milky Way as a small spiral of stars in their night sky. Bring them back," Admiral Vexter said quietly. "Of course." Carter nodded to Amy. The dreadnought reappeared exactly where it had been before. But something had changed in the alien fleet. The ships that had been moving forward in attack formation were now pulling back. The ships that had been arguing about whether to fight or retreat were now clearly choosing retreat. "Captain Carter," Admiral Vexter's voice came through the speakers, "I think my commanders understand now. You don't just have a new weapon. You have technology that makes traditional warfare meaningless." Carter stood up from his captain's chair. "Admiral, that was the point of this demonstration. We don't want to fight you. We don't want to destroy your ships or hurt your crews. We just want you to understand that war between our peoples is pointless. What do you propose?" The Admiral asked, "Go home, Admiral. Take your fleet back to your own space. Leave the human colonies alone. And think about what we could accomplish if we worked together instead of fighting each other." The alien fleet began to move, but this time in a coordinated withdrawal. The different species were no longer arguing amongst themselves. They had all reached the same conclusion. There was no point in fighting an enemy who could move their entire fleet to another galaxy dot, but Captain Carter knew this was just the beginning. Word of what had happened here would spread throughout the galaxy. Every species, every government, every military commander would want to know how the humans had developed such incredible technology. The real test was still to come. 6 months after the confrontation at Kepler 442b, Captain Ryan Carter stood in the same Pentagon meeting room where Admiral Murphy had made his impossible decision. But now the room was different. Instead of just human officers, there were beings from 12 different species sitting around the table. The Zephyrian ambassador, a smaller and more diplomatic version of Admiral Vexter, was speaking through a translation device. "Captain Carter, our Science Council has studied the reports from our fleet encounter. We still do not understand how your quantum technology works." Carter looked around the table at the alien representatives. 6 months ago, they had been enemies preparing for the largest space battle in galactic history. Now they were asking to become allies and partners. "Ambassador," Carter replied, "we're happy to share our knowledge, but not our weapons technology. We've learned that some things are too dangerous to spread around the galaxy." The Thurian ambassador, a tall being with crystal-like skin, leaned forward. "Captain, your demonstration at Kepler changed everything. Word has spread to every corner of the galaxy. Every species now knows that humanity has transcended traditional warfare." Admiral Murphy, now promoted to head of Human Galactic Relations, nodded from his seat at the head of the table. "That was the plan, Ambassador. We wanted to end the age of massive space battles and fleet warfare." The meeting was interrupted when Lieutenant Kelly Wright entered the room. She was no longer just a science officer on the Defiance. After the Kepler incident, she had been promoted to head of the new Human Quantum Research Division. "Sorry to interrupt," Kelly said, "but we're receiving a priority transmission from the Defiance." Admiral Murphy activated the room's communication system. "Go ahead, Defiance." Amy Parker's voice came through the speakers. She was now the chief engineer of humanity's entire quantum fleet program. "Admiral, we have a situation. Long range. Sensors are detecting another large fleet approaching human space. This one is even bigger than the Zephyrian coalition was." The alien ambassadors looked at each other with concern. Admiral Murphy frowned. "How big, Chief Parker?" "Over 5,000. Ships, sir. Multiple species we don't recognize. They're calling themselves the Galactic Supremacy Alliance. and they're demanding that humanity surrender its quantum technology immediately. Carter stood up from his chair. It seems word of our capabilities has reached some groups who think they can take what we have by force. The Zephyrian ambassador made a sound that his translator rendered his worry. Captain, the Galactic Supremacy Alliance is made up of the most aggressive species in the galaxy. They've been conquering systems for centuries. They don't negotiate, they don't retreat, and they don't show mercy. Carter walked to the window that looked out over the bustling spaceport, where ships from a dozen different worlds were landing and taking off. How long until they reach human space? 48 hours at their current speed, Amy's voice replied through the speakers. Admiral Murphy stood up. Captain Carter, I'm putting you back in command of the Defiance. It seems we need to give another demonstration. Sir, Carter said, with respect, 5,000 ships is a lot more than 3,000. Even with our quantum technology, that's a significant force. Kelly Wright had been studying her datapad during the conversation. Now she looked up with an expression that was part excitement and part concern. Actually, Captain, I've been working on some improvements to our quantum systems. We might be able to handle a fleet that size, but it would require something we've never attempted before. What do you mean? Carter asked. Instead of moving their ships one at a time, or even 50 at a time, we could potentially displace their entire fleet simultaneously. The room fell silent. Even the alien ambassadors seemed to understand the implications of what Kelly was suggesting. The entire fleet? Admiral Murphy asked. All 5,000 ships at once? It's theoretically possible, Kelly replied. But the power requirements would be enormous. We'd need to link the quantum drives of every ship in the human fleet to create a combined field strong enough to affect that many targets. The Therian ambassador spoke up. Captain Carter, our species has some experience with large-scale energy manipulation. We would be willing to help. Other alien ambassadors began offering assistance. The Crystalline Collective had advanced computer systems that could help with calculations. The Corvin Republic had energy storage technology that might be useful. Carter realized that something remarkable was happening. The species that had come to Earth as former enemies were now offering to help defend humanity against a new threat. Admiral, Carter said to Murphy, I think we should accept their help. But not just for the technology. If we're going to end the age of galactic warfare permanently, we need to show the galaxy that cooperation is stronger than conquest. 48 hours later, the USS Defiance was no longer alone. It was accompanied by ships from 12 different species, all working together for the first time in galactic history. The human quantum technology had been enhanced with alien energy systems, computer networks, and scientific knowledge. The Galactic Supremacy Alliance arrived at the edge of awe. Human space exactly on schedule. Their fleet was even more impressive than the Zephyrian coalition had been. 5,000 ships of every size and design, representing the most aggressive military forces in the galaxy. Their leader, Supreme Commander Drake Thule of the Hegemony Empire, opened communications immediately. Humans, you will surrender your quantum technology to the Alliance. You have 1 hour to comply, or we will take it by force. Captain Carter, standing on the bridge of the Defiance, surrounded by both human and alien officers working together, smiled. Supreme Commander, I'm afraid that's not going to happen. One ship, Commander Drake Thule's voice showed contempt. You send one ship against 5,000. Your quantum tricks might work against smaller fleets, but we have studied the reports from Kepler. We know your limitations. Do you? Carter asked. Kelly, show the commander what we've learned in the past 6 months. This time, the demonstration was different. Instead of making ships disappear one at a time, the entire Galactic Supremacy Alliance fleet simply vanished. All 5,000. Ships, gone in an instant. Where did you send them? Commander Drakethul's voice came from empty space, transmitted across impossible distances. "Home," Carter replied simply. "Each ship has been returned to its home system, its home world. Your crews are safe, your ships are undamaged, but your fleet no longer exists." The communication channel was quiet for a long time. When Commander Drakethul spoke again, his voice had changed completely. "How did you do that? 5,000 ships, scattered across hundreds of different star systems, all move simultaneously?" "Cooperation," Carter answered. 12 different species working together, sharing their knowledge and technology. Something your alliance never learned to do. Admiral Murphy's voice came through the communication system from Earth. "Commander Drakethul, humanity offers the same thing to your alliance that we offered to the Zephyrian Coalition. Peace, cooperation, and the chance to build something better than endless war." Over the following months, one by one, the species that had made up the Galactic Supremacy Alliance began sending ambassadors to Earth. They came not as conquerors, but as potential partners. Captain Carter found himself spending more time in meeting rooms than on starship bridges, but he didn't mind. The Defiance had become a symbol of something new in the galaxy, the idea that intelligence and cooperation could accomplish more than brute force and aggression. Lieutenant Kelly Wright, now a full commander, was leading joint research projects with scientists from 20 different worlds. Her quantum technology was being combined with alien knowledge to create possibilities that no single species could have imagined. Chief Engineer Amy Parker was teaching alien engineers how to build quantum drive systems, not for weapons, but for exploration and peaceful transportation between distant galaxies. And Admiral Murphy, from his office overlooking the busiest spaceport in human history, watched ships from dozens of different worlds coming and going in peace. The age of galactic warfare was over. The age of galactic cooperation had begun. Late one evening, Carter stood on the observation deck of the Defiance, which was now docked at Earth's orbital station. Through the window, he could see the lights of alien ships alongside human vessels. Crews from different worlds were working together, learning from each other, building a future that none of them could have imagined just a year before. His communicator chimed. It was a message from Admiral Murphy. "Captain, we're receiving requests from 3 more species who want to join our cooperative alliance. Also, the Andromeda Council has sent representatives asking if we'd be interested in establishing peaceful contact with their galaxy." Carter smiled. Humanity had set out to defend 17 star systems. Instead, they had changed the nature of civilization itself. The fleet had expected a battle. Humanity had given them something much better: hope for a peaceful future among the stars.
Admiral Catherine Powell stared at the giant screen on the wall. Her tired face glowed blue from the light of the display. It showed dozens of alien ships surrounding Earth's defense line. The United Earth Defense Force had called every ship. They had all 23 of them to protect humanity's home planet. "They're calling us again, Admiral," said Lieutenant John Reeves from his station. The face of the alien appeared on the screen. Ambassador Gentok moved his insect-like mouthparts in what Earth scientists said was a smile. "Your species has been invited to join the Galactic Conclave, Admiral Powell. Yet you show us this? 23 ships against just our scout fleet?" The alien waved toward the window, where hundreds of their ships floated in perfect lines. "Maybe humans are not ready for space politics after all." Powell heard Captain Frank Morris whisper to Science Officer Lisa Gray. "They have no idea what our ships can do." Admiral Powell fixed her uniform and stood taller. "Ambassador, humanity may be new to space travel, but we've learned to make every shot count. The Conclave might stop laughing when they understand what we can do." The alien's eyes narrowed. "We shall see, human. We shall see." The screen went dark. Powell turned to her crew. "Status report. All ships in defensive formation," reported Commander Diane Foster, her second in command. "The aliens haven't made any aggressive moves yet." Keep watching them, Powell ordered. I want to know if any ship changes course or powers up weapons. Captain. Morris approached the Admiral. Ma'am, should we activate the GC arrays? He was talking about the gravitational compression weapons, humanity's greatest military secret. Powell shook her head. Not yet. We don't want to show our hand unless we have to. She looked back at the screen showing the alien fleet. There were so many of them, all much bigger than Earth ships. But size wasn't everything. The command room of the UES Defiant was quiet as everyone did their jobs. It was the flagship of Earth's small fleet, but it packed more firepower than any alien ship out there. The humans had learned to do more with less. They had to. Admiral, called Lieutenant Reeves, the Valtraxian second-in-command is requesting to come aboard. They want to inspect our vessel. Powell exchanged glances with Commander Foster. This was both a risk and an opportunity. Permission granted, she said after a moment, but limit access to non-sensitive areas only. 30 minutes later, Subcommander Krell of the Valtraxian fleet stepped onto the bridge of the Defiant. He was shorter than Ambassador Gentok, but had the same insect-like features. His 4 eyes scanned the bridge with obvious amusement. This is your command center? He asked, his translator making his clicks and chirps into English. It's quaint. Powell smiled tightly. We find it efficient. Krell walked around, looking at the various stations. The human crew watched him carefully. Your species is interesting, Krell said. Barely 200 years of spaceflight, and you think you deserve a seat at the conclave. He laughed, a strange chirping sound. The Valtraxian Empire has existed for 12,000 years. We had mastered the stars while your ancestors were still living in caves. Yet here we are, Powell replied calmly. Perhaps we learned quickly, or perhaps you don't know your place, Krell said, his voice suddenly cold. The conclave has rules, Admiral. Strong members protect weak ones. What protection could Earth possibly offer? Dr. Alan Barnes, the fleet's chief engineer, spoke up from his station. With respect, Subcommander, contribution to the conclave isn't just about fleet size. Krell turned all 4 eyes to Barnes. Is that so, human? Then tell me, what other metrics matter? Innovation, Barnes replied. Efficiency, new ideas. Ideas don't stop plasma torpedoes, Krell said with another laugh. He turned back to Powell. The inspection is complete. Your ships are exactly as primitive as they appear. He moved toward the exit, then paused. A word of advice, Admiral. When the conclave votes on your membership next week, accept whatever terms they offer. Some members find your kind irritating. They might prefer a demonstration of force rather than welcoming you as equals. After Krell left, Commander Foster moved to Powell's side. That was a threat. Yes, it was, Powell agreed. She pressed a button on her chair. All ship commanders, conference call in 5 minutes. In the meeting room, the captains of Earth's 23 ships gathered on screen. Powell explained the situation. They're planning something, said Captain Nicole Warren of the UES Dauntless. Their ships have been repositioning all day. The Valtraxians have a history of showing new species their place in the galaxy, added Captain Jack Nichols of the UES Intrepid, usually with a quick, overwhelming attack. Powell nodded. That's my assessment, too. They want to embarrass us, force us to accept junior status in the conclave. Our intel suggests they don't know about the GC weapons, said Lieutenant Ericke. Summers, head of intelligence. They think our ships are armed with standard plasma cannons like everyone else. Then we have surprise on our side, Powell said. But I don't want to fight unless it's necessary. Update all defense protocols. If they attack, target only their weapon systems and engines at first. And if that doesn't stop them? Asked Captain Morris. Powell's face grew serious. Then we show them exactly what Earth ships can do. The meeting ended and Powell returned to the bridge. She stood by the main window, looking out at the stars and the alien ships beyond. Humanity had fought hard to reach this point. After the climate wars and the resource crisis of the 21st century, people had finally united. The discovery of faster-than-light travel had opened the galaxy to them. And now, just 50 years after their first contact with alien life, Earth was on the edge of joining the galactic conclave, if the Valtraxians didn't ruin everything. "Admiral," called Lieutenant Reeves, "we've detected energy spikes in the Valtraxian fleet. They're powering up weapons." Powell took a deep breath. "Alert all ships, battle stations." She sat in her command chair as alarms began to sound throughout. The Defiant. On the screen, the Valtraxian ships were moving, forming attack patterns. "They're targeting our orbital defense platforms," reported Lieutenant Susan Miller from the tactical station. "Open a channel to their flagship," Powell ordered. "Ambassador," Gentak appeared on screen again. "Admiral Powell, I hope you've reconsidered your position on Earth's entry terms. Ambassador, your ships are in attack formation. Stand down immediately." Gentak's mandibles clicked rapidly. "This is merely a demonstration, Admiral. The Conclave must know that Earth understands its proper place in the galactic order." 3 Valtraxian destroyers fired on an unmanned defense satellite. It exploded in a bright flash. "Last warning, Ambassador," Powell said, her voice steel. "Withdraw your ships now." "Or what?" Gentak laughed. "You'll fight us with your toy fleet?" Powell nodded to Lieutenant Miller. "Target their lead destroyer, standard weapons only." The Defiant fired a precise shot that hit the Valtraxian ship's main weapon. The alien vessel spun from the impact. On screen, Gentak looked surprised. "Interesting. Your weapons are stronger than expected, but not strong enough." He turned and gave an order. "All ships target the human vessels. Show them the might of the Valtraxian Empire." Powell watched as hundreds of alien ships turned toward her small fleet. "All ships," she said calmly into her communicator. "Evasive maneuvers. Prepare gravitational compression arrays." The greatest space battle in human history was about to begin. The space around Earth lit up as hundreds of Valtraxian ships fired their weapons. Admiral Powell watched from the bridge of the UES Defiant as energy blasts flew toward her small fleet. "Evasive action," she ordered. "All ships, activate defensive shields." The 23 human ships moved with surprising speed. They dodged most of the alien fire, and their shields caught the rest. "No damage reported, Admiral," said Commander Foster. "Our shields are holding." On the main screen, Ambassador Gentak looked confused. "Impossible. Your shields should have failed instantly." Powell allowed herself a small smile. "As I said, Ambassador, humanity has learned to make every shot count. We've also learned to make our defenses count." Gentak's mandibles clicked angrily. "All ships concentrate fire on their flagship." 50 Valtraxian vessels turned toward the Defiant and fired together. "Brace for impact," Powell warned her crew. The ship shook as the alien weapons hit their shields. Warning lights flashed on several stations. "Shields at 60%, reported Lieutenant Miller. "They're hitting us hard, Admiral." "Hold position," Powell ordered. She pressed her communicator. "Dr. Barnes, status of the GC array." The chief engineer's voice came through. "Ready when you are, Admiral. But I should warn you, we've never fired it at full power before." "Noted." Powell looked at her tactical display. The Valtraxians were surrounding them, growing more confident with each shot. "Lieutenant Reeves, open a channel to all Earth ships." When the connection was ready, Powell spoke clearly. "This is Admiral Powell. The Valtraxians have made their intentions clear. We will not fire first, but we will defend ourselves. Prepare GC arrays for targeted strikes. Aim for weapons and engines only." Captain Morris's voice came through. "Admiral, they've already attacked our defense platforms. Let's show them what we can really do." "Not yet, Captain," Powell replied. "I want to give them one more chance." She turned to Lieutenant Reeves. "Open a channel to Ambassador Gentak." The alien's face appeared on screen, his 4 eyes blinking in different patterns. "Are you ready to surrender, Admiral?" "I promise. We'll be gentle with your planet." "This is your final warning, Ambassador," Powell said firmly. "Cease fire and withdraw your ships." Gentak laughed, a strange clicking sound. "You are brave, human, but foolish. Look around you. We have hundreds of ships to your handful. A blast rocked the Defiant, cutting off the transmission. Direct hit to our communication array, reported Commander Foster. Shields at 40%. Powell's face hardened. They've had their chance. All ships, prepare to fire GC arrays. Target their lead vessels. Weapons only. Dr. Barnes called from engineering. GC array charged and ready, Admiral. Fire. From the tip of the Defiant, a small beam of blue-white light shot out. It looked almost harmless compared to the massive energy weapons of the Valtraxian ships. The beam hit the nearest alien vessel. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the Valtraxian ship's weapons crumpled inward, crushed by an invisible force. The alien crew could be seen through the viewport, panicking as their weapon systems collapsed. Across the battlefield, all 23 human ships fired their GC arrays. 23 Valtraxian ships suddenly lost their weapons. What is happening? Gentok's voice came through a backup channel. What have you done to our ships? Gravitational compression technology, Powell explained calmly. We can create localized gravity fields strong enough to crush specific targets. We targeted your weapons only as a courtesy. On the tactical display, the Valtraxian fleet had stopped firing. The disabled ships drifted helplessly. Impossible, Gentok said. No species has mastered directed gravitational fields. Humans have, Powell replied. Now I ask again. Withdraw your fleet. Instead of answering, Gentok cut the communication. A moment later, the Valtraxian fleet began moving again. They're regrouping, said Lieutenant Miller. Forming attack formations, Powell sighed. They're not going to back down. She made a decision. All ships prepare for second volley. This time target their engines. Before the order could be carried out, hundreds more Valtraxian ships appeared from faster-than-light travel. Admiral, Commander Foster's voice was tense. We've got another problem. Their main fleet just arrived. Powell studied the tactical display. There were now over 1,000 alien ships surrounding Earth's small fleet. We can't win against these numbers, not even with the GC arrays, Captain Morris said over the communicator. We don't need to win, Powell replied. We just need to make it too costly for them to continue. She turned to Dr. Barnes, who had come to the bridge. Doctor, what would happen if we targeted our GC arrays on a ship's power core? Barnes looked uncomfortable. The gravitational compression would cause the core to implode, then release its energy. Essentially, the ship would explode. Powell nodded. Can we control the power of the compression? Make it strong enough to threaten, but not destroy? Theory, yes, Barnes said. But it would require precise calibration. The ship shook again as the Valtraxians resumed their attack. Shields at 20%, reported Lieutenant Miller. We can't take much more of this. Powell made her decision. Dr. Barnes, calibrate one GC array to target the flagship's power core. Minimum compression, just enough to be detected by their sensors. Barnes worked quickly at a console. Ready, Admiral. Powell opened a channel to the Valtraxian flagship. Ambassador Gentok, scan your power core. There was a pause, then Gentok's voice came through, shaken for the first time. What are you doing to our core? Applying a very gentle gravitational field, Powell explained. Currently, it's harmless. But if we increase the power... You're bluffing, Gentok said, but his voice lacked confidence. You wouldn't destroy our ships. The Conclave would never accept you if you did. The Conclave invited us to join, Powell reminded him. You're the one who decided to attack instead of welcome us. Now make your choice, Ambassador. Withdraw your fleet or we'll be forced to defend ourselves more aggressively. The bridge was silent as everyone waited for the Valtraxian response. Finally, Gentok spoke. This is not over, human. But we will. Withdraw it for now. Slowly, the alien fleet began to pull back. Keep GC arrays ready, Powell ordered. Don't relax until they're out of firing range. As the Valtraxian ships retreated, Commander Foster approached Powell. They'll be back, won't they? Yes, Powell said. But next time, they'll know what we're capable of. And so will the rest of the Conclave. Lieutenant Reeves looked up from his station. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from Earth Central Command. They want a full report. And the conclave representatives are requesting an emergency meeting, added Lieutenant Miller. Powell nodded. Tell them both we'll be right with them. She looked out at the stars, where the alien fleet was disappearing into the distance. The real battle is just beginning. The conclave meeting hall was massive. Representatives from over 300 alien species sat in rows that rose like steps in a giant bowl. In the center was a round platform where speakers stood. Ambassador Richard Daniels walked to this platform, aware of all the eyes watching him. The human delegation was given the smallest table in the hall, far from the center. It was meant to show how unimportant they were. Admiral Powell sat with the delegation, wearing her formal uniform. She looked calm, but her eyes missed nothing. The conclave recognizes Earth's Ambassador Daniels, said Grand Arbiter Voleth, a tall reptilian alien with shiny scales. His voice echoed through the hall. Thank you, Grand Arbiter, Daniels said. I come before the conclave to discuss yesterday's unprovoked attack on Earth forces by the Valtraxian fleet. A murmur spread through the hall. Many representatives had already heard about the battle. Ambassador Gentok rose from his seat. Unprovoked? We were conducting a standard military exercise when the humans used some kind of illegal weapon against us. Illegal weapon? Daniels asked calmly. Gravitational compression technology is not banned by any conclave treaty, because no one has ever weaponized it before. Gentok's mandibles clicked rapidly in anger. They targeted our power cores. They could have destroyed our entire fleet. But we didn't, Daniels pointed out. We disabled weapons and engines only. No lives were lost. Grand Arbiter Voleth raised a clawed hand for silence. Ambassador Gentok, is it true your fleet fired first, destroying an Earth defense platform? Gentok's four eyes blinked in different patterns. A regrettable mistake during our exercises. We offered compensation. After you demanded our surrender, Admiral Powell spoke up. All eyes turned to her. The Grand Arbiter looked down at Powell. The conclave would hear your account, Admiral. Powell stood and walked to the center platform. The Valtraxian fleet surrounded Earth with over 200 ships. They fired on our defense platform, then demanded that we accept junior status in the conclave or face destruction. When we refused, they attacked our fleet. And somehow your 23 ships survived against hundreds of ours? Gentok asked with disbelief. The human is lying. We have sensor logs from all ships, Powell replied, and I believe your ships recorded the battle as well. The Grand Arbiter nodded to an aide, who pressed some buttons. A large screen appeared above the platform, showing images from the battle. Everyone could see the small human fleet surrounded by Valtraxian ships. They watched as the aliens fired first, then as the human ships fired their strange blue-white beams. What are we seeing? Asked a representative from a gas giant species. Gravitational compression technology, Powell explained. We can create focused gravity fields to target specific areas. In this case, we disabled weapons and engines without destroying ships or harming crews. Many representatives were leaning forward now, interested. How did such a small species develop this technology when none of us have? Asked another alien. Powell smiled slightly. Necessity. Earth was alone for a long time. We had to be creative with our resources. Ambassador Daniels stepped forward again. The conclave invited Earth to join as equals. The Valtraxians tried to force us to accept lesser status through military action. We defended ourselves with minimal force. Now we ask the conclave, will you honor your invitation, or do you also believe might makes right? The hall was quiet as the representatives considered this. Gentok broke the silence. The humans are dangerous. Their technology could destroy entire fleets. So could yours, Powell pointed out. The difference is, we chose not to. The Grand Arbiter raised his hand again. This matter requires discussion. The conclave will recess for 2 hours. As the representatives filed out, Powell and Daniels returned to the human table. That went better than expected, Daniels said quietly. Don't celebrate yet, Powell warned. The Valtraxians have many allies here. In another part of the meeting hall, Gentok, huddled with representatives from allied species. The humans must not be allowed to join as equals. Their technology threatens our position. But if their gravitational weapons are as powerful as they seem, one ally said nervously. All the more reason to act now, Gentok insisted, before they build more ships. When the conclave reconvened, tension filled the air. The Grand Arbiter called for a vote on Earth's membership status. Those in favor of accepting Earth as a full member, with all rights and responsibilities, many, hands rose but not enough. Those in favor of accepting Earth as a junior member, under Valtraxian sponsorship, more hands rose, including Gentok and all his allies. The Grand Arbiter counted silently. The vote is close, but Earth will be admitted as a junior member under Valtraxian guidance. Ambassador Daniels stood up, his face calm but his eyes angry. Earth respectfully declines these terms. We were invited as equals. We will not accept less. Gasps echoed through the hall. No species had ever refused conclave membership before. This is your final chance, human, Gentok said. Accept our guidance or face the consequences. Admiral Powell stepped forward. Is that another threat, Ambassador? Did yesterday's demonstration teach you nothing? The Grand Arbiter looked troubled. Ambassador Daniels, Admiral Powell, please reconsider. The conclave offers protection, trade, knowledge. At the cost of our independence? Daniels asked. No, thank you. Powell addressed the entire hall. Earth wishes peace with all species. We will defend ourselves if attacked, but we offer friendship to any who treat us as equals. As they turned to leave, a small alien with blue skin hurried over to them. Admiral, Ambassador, please wait. I am Representative Nix of the Talari Federation. We were impressed by your technology and your restraint in using it. Perhaps we could discuss a separate alliance? Before they could answer, 2 other representatives approached, then 3 more. It seems not everyone agrees with the Valtraxians, Daniel said quietly to Powell. By the time they reached the exit, a dozen different species had offered to form separate agreements with Earth. Gentok watched furiously from his seat. This is not over, he hissed to his aide. Prepare our main fleet. If the humans won't accept our guidance, they will feel our might. Outside the hall, Powell received an urgent message from Earth. Admiral, we're detecting large Valtraxian fleet movements. They're gathering near Jupiter. Powell looked at Daniels. It seems diplomacy has failed. Then it's time for Plan B, Daniels replied grimly. Powell nodded and contacted her ship. Captain Morris, alert all Earth ships. The Valtraxians are coming back, and this time they're bringing their main fleet. How many ships, Admiral? Morris asked. Intelligence suggests over 3,000, Powell replied. There was a pause, then Morris said, well, we still have 23, should be enough. The 23 ships of Earth's fleet formed a defensive line near the orbit of Mars. Behind them was Earth, blue and vulnerable. Ahead of them, appearing from faster-than-light travel in groups of hundreds, came the Valtraxian main fleet. 3,217 ships, reported Lieutenant Reeves from his station on the Defiant. Still more coming through. Admiral Powell stood at the center of the bridge, her face showing no fear. Status of our fleet? All ships report ready, Admiral, said Commander Foster. GC arrays at full power. Earth's orbital platforms are also online. Powell looked at the tactical display. The Valtraxians were forming attack groups, their massive dreadnoughts at the center of each formation. They outnumbered the human fleet by more than 100 to 1. Any word from our new friends? Powell asked. Lieutenant Reeves checked his communications panel. The Talari have pledged support, but their nearest fleet is 2 days away. 4 other species have also promised help. 2 days too late, muttered Captain Morris. Powell nodded. Then we stand alone. She opened a fleet-wide channel. All ships, this is Admiral Powell. Today we defend not just Earth, but our right to exist as equals in this galaxy. The Valtraxians think numbers win battles. Let's show them what human ingenuity can do. Across the fleet, captains acknowledged her words. Their voices were steady, determined. Admiral, Lieutenant Miller called from Tactical. The Valtraxian flagship is hailing us. On screen, Powell ordered. Ambassador Gentok appeared, but now he wore military armor instead of diplomatic robes. Admiral Powell, surrender now, and your people may live as our subjects. Fight, and Earth burns. Powell's voice was calm. We both know that's not true, Ambassador. Or should I call you Fleet Commander now? The Conclave prohibits the destruction of inhabited worlds. Accidents happen in war, Gentok said coldly. Your orbital defense grid could malfunction, sending missiles to your own cities. Very tragic. Powell's eyes narrowed. We will not surrender. Then die with dignity. Gentok cut the transmission. They're powering weapons, reported Lieutenant Miller. All ships, defensive formation Delta, Powell ordered. Prepare to execute Combat Plan Echo. The human ships spread out, taking positions that seemed random to outside observers. But each ship knew exactly where it needed to be. The Valtraxian fleet advanced, their front line of destroyers firing first. Space lit up with energy blasts aimed at the human ships. Evasive maneuvers, Powell ordered calmly. Return fire with standard weapons only. Save the GC arrays. The human ships moved with incredible speed and precision. They dodged most of the alien fire and absorbed the rest with their shields. Their return fire was precise, targeting the lead Valtraxian ships. First wave ineffective, reported Commander Foster. They're bringing up their cruisers now. Powell watched as the larger Valtraxian ships moved forward. They're testing our defenses, looking for weaknesses. The cruisers fired, their weapons much stronger than the destroyers. 2 human ships took direct hits. The Birmingham and the Santiago report shield damage, said Lieutenant Reeves. Holding at 40%. Powell nodded. Tell them to fall. Back slightly. Maintain formation. For 20 minutes the battle continued this way. The Valtraxians attacked in waves and the human ships defended and counterattacked with conventional weapons. Both sides took damage, but nothing decisive. Then Gentok changed tactics. Admiral, called Lieutenant Miller. Their dreadnoughts are moving forward. All of them. Powell studied the tactical display. 30 massive Valtraxian dreadnoughts were forming a line. Each one was bigger than 10 human ships combined. They're concentrating their firepower, said Commander Foster, with concern. Our shields won't hold against that. Powell's face remained calm. They're also concentrating their targets. Lieutenant Reeves, Signal Plan Echo. All ships prepare GC arrays. The dreadnoughts fired together. 30 beams of destructive energy lanced toward the human fleet. Now, Powell ordered. The 23 human ships fired their gravitational compression arrays simultaneously. The blue-white beams met the Valtraxian weapons fire in space, and then something extraordinary happened. The GC arrays created a gravity well between the fleets. The Valtraxian energy weapons curved and twisted, drawn into the artificial gravity field. None reached their targets. It worked, exclaimed Dr. Barnes from his station. The gravity well is containing their fire. All ships, Phase 2, Powell ordered. The human fleet changed formation, their GC arrays still firing. Now, instead of creating a single gravity well, they formed a gravitational lens, a massive curving field of distorted space. Gravity lens stable, reported Dr. Barnes. Ready for Phase 3. Execute, Powell said. The human ships adjusted their GC arrays with precise coordination. The gravitational lens focused and redirected the captured Valtraxian weapon energy. Then, like a giant mirror, it sent that energy back toward the alien fleet. The Valtraxians had no time to react. Their own weapons fire, amplified by the gravitational lens, hit their front-line ships. 6 dreadnoughts exploded instantly. Dozens of cruisers and destroyers behind them were crippled or destroyed. On the bridge of the Defiant, there was stunned silence as they watched the destruction they had caused. They never expected us to turn their own weapons against them, Commander Foster said quietly. Powell's face showed no joy at the victory, only grim determination. Signal the fleet. Target their remaining dreadnoughts. GC arrays at full power. The human ships fired again, this time aiming directly at the Valtraxian capital ships. The blue-white beams struck with precision. On the huge alien vessels, weapon systems imploded, engines collapsed, and power cores shut down to prevent catastrophic failure. Within minutes, all 30 dreadnoughts were drifting helplessly in space. "The rest of their fleet is breaking formation," reported Lieutenant Miller. "They're pulling back." Powell opened a channel to Gentak's ship, which was among the disabled dreadnoughts. "This is Admiral Powell. Your capital ships are disabled. Withdraw your fleet now, or we will be forced to continue our defense." For a long moment there was no response. Then Gentak appeared on screen. His armor was damaged and one of his 4 eyes was injured. "This is not possible," he said, his voice shaking. "No fleet has ever defeated our dreadnoughts." "And yet, here we are," Powell replied. "Will you withdraw?" Gentak seemed to struggle with himself. Finally he said, "We will withdraw. But know this, human. The Conclave will hear of your unprovoked attack on our peaceful fleet." Powell almost smiled. "The Conclave representatives are watching this battle, Ambassador. We've been broadcasting everything. They've seen who fired first." Gentak's mandibles clicked in fury, but he said nothing more. The transmission ended. As the Valtraxian fleet retreated, Lieutenant Reeves called out, "Admiral, we're receiving transmissions from multiple Conclave species. They want to talk." "I bet they do," said Captain Morris with a grin. Powell nodded. "Put them through. I think the galaxy just learned why you shouldn't laugh at the size of a human fleet." 1 month after the battle near Mars, the Conclave meeting hall looked very different. The human delegation no longer sat at the smallest table in the far corner. Now they had a large table near the center, with Ambassador Daniels and Admiral Powell seated prominently. The Grand Arbiter Voleth called the session to order. "Today we formally welcome Earth as a full member of the Galactic Conclave, with all rights and responsibilities." Applause filled the hall from most representatives. A few remained silent, including the Valtraxian delegation. Ambassador Gentak was not present. In his place was a new ambassador, one with less military influence. "Would Earth's representatives like to address the Conclave?" Voleth asked. Ambassador Daniels stood and walked to the center platform. Admiral Powell joined him. "The people of Earth thank the Conclave for this welcome," Daniels began. "We look forward to peaceful cooperation with all species." Powell spoke next. "Earth joins the galactic community not to dominate, but to contribute. Our technology, our ideas, and our friendship are offered to all who wish to work together as equals." Many representatives nodded in approval. Several looked impressed by this humble approach from the species that had just defeated the Valtraxian main fleet. After the formal ceremony, representatives from dozens of species approached the humans. Some wanted trade agreements. Others were interested in cultural exchange. Many were curious about human technology. Admiral Powell called Representative Nix of the Talari Federation, the blue-skinned alien who had first approached them a month ago. "My government wishes to discuss a technology exchange program." "We would be happy to discuss that," Powell replied with a smile. A tall, plant-like alien stepped forward next. "The Photurian Collective offers mineral resources in exchange for learning about your gravitational compression technology, and the Doraxian Empire would welcome human ships at our starbases for joint defense exercises," added another representative. Powell and Daniels exchanged pleased glances. In just 1 month, Earth had gone from an outsider to one of the most sought-after allies in the Conclave. Later, at a reception in the Earth Embassy, Powell stood by a window looking out at the Conclave capital city. The alien architecture was beautiful, with towers that seemed to defy gravity and bridges made of light. "Quite a view, isn't it?" said Dr. Barnes, joining her with a drink in hand. "It's amazing," Powell agreed. "A month ago I wasn't sure we'd live to see it." Barnes nodded. "The Valtraxians really thought they could crush us with their numbers." "A common mistake," said a new voice. They turned to see the new Valtraxian ambassador approaching. Unlike Gentak, she moved with grace rather than arrogance. "Ambassador Kriva." Powell greeted her politely. Admiral Powell, the Valtraxian replied with a small bow. I wanted to thank you personally. Powell raised an eyebrow. Thank me? For what? For not destroying our fleet when you could have, Kriva said. Our military leaders now understand that your gravitational technology could have crushed all our ships, not just disabled them. Powell nodded slowly. War was never our goal, Ambassador. Only recognition of our right to exist as equals. A lesson my people are learning, Kriva admitted. For too long, the Valtraxian Empire equated size with strength, numbers with power. Barnes smiled. Quality over quantity. It's an old human saying. A wise one, Kriva agreed. My government wishes to start fresh with Earth. Perhaps even learn from each other. We would welcome that, Powell said sincerely. After the Valtraxian ambassador moved on to speak with other guests, Commander Foster approached Powell. Good news from home, Admiral, Foster said. The new ships are almost ready. Powell smiled. How many this time? 30 more, Foster replied. Smaller than the current ones, but with improved GC arrays. Smaller and more powerful, Powell mused. The Valtraxians still won't understand our thinking. Across the room, Ambassador Daniels was speaking with the Grand Arbiter. Your species has made quite an impression, Voleth said. Not just with your military prowess, but with your restraint in using it, Daniels nodded. Humans learned the hard way that having power is less important than knowing when not to use it. A lesson some members of the Conclave still need to learn, Voleth admitted. For millennia, the galactic balance has favored those with the largest fleets, the most territory. And now? Daniels asked. Voleth's reptilian eyes blinked thoughtfully. Now many are reconsidering their assumptions. Your gravitational technology has changed the equation. But more importantly, your willingness to stand alone against overwhelming odds has earned respect. Later that night, Powell returned to her, ship in orbit above the Conclave homeworld. Captain Morris met her in the shuttle bay. How was the party? He asked as they walked to the bridge. Diplomatic, Powell replied with a small smile. But successful. We have 17 new alliance offers and 32 trade proposals. Morris whistled. Not bad for the new kids in the galaxy. They reached the bridge where Lieutenant Reeves was on duty. Admiral, message from Earth Central Command. They're sending the new ships early. The UES Phoenix will lead the group. Powell nodded approval. Good. The Conclave should see that we're strengthening our position. Do you think the Valtraxians will try again? Morris asked quietly. Powell looked out at the stars visible through the main viewport. No, they've learned their lesson, but others might not have. We need to be ready. With just 53 ships against thousands? Morris asked. Powell smiled. Quality over quantity, Captain. Besides, our new allies are already asking to add our gravitational technology to their ships. Within a year, the balance of power in this galaxy will look very different. Commander Foster joined them. Earth Central Command also reports that our deep space sensors have detected activity beyond the Conclave borders, possibly a new species previously unknown. Hostile? Powell asked. Unknown, Foster replied. But they appear to have a very large fleet. Powell nodded thoughtfully. Alert our new allies. If there are new players entering the game, the Conclave will need to stand together. And if they're hostile? Morris asked. Powell's eyes showed determination as she looked at the small but powerful fleet of Earth ships on the tactical display. Then they'll learn the same lesson as the Valtraxians. Never judge by size alone. In the distance, the UES Phoenix and its sister ships appeared from faster-than-light travel. Though small by galactic standards, they represented humanity's growing strength and influence. Earth was no longer alone in the universe, no longer the newcomer to be pushed around. They had earned their place among the stars, not through overwhelming numbers, but through innovation, courage, and the determination to make every shot count. And the galaxy would never underestimate them again.